So yesterday, as I was walking, I had my grandma so heavy on my mind. My grandma Josie passed away in the year 2000. And before she passed away, 2 months before, she passed away in May. 2 months before was March. And in March, her legs were really, really hard and they were black, they were hairless, and they stayed cold all the time. Right now, I know that to be peripheral vascular disease, but she didn't have any diagnosis. She wasn't diagnosed with diabetes, she wasn't diagnosed with high blood pressure, she wasn't taking any medication or no diagnosis for anything. However, this is what she experienced. Her legs were dark, dark, dark. They were hairless and they stayed cold. And she started complaining about getting cramps in her leg. Right now, today, I know that that's peripheral vascular disease brought on by diabetes. But she wasn't diagnosed with diabetes at the time. So that March, she was complaining about her legs was hurt, aching, and we took her to the doctor. We took her to the hospital, and they admitted her. She was 290 pounds, almost 300 pounds, about 5'3", so little, morbidly obese lady. So when she get in the hospital, they run all these tests, and I would leave work. My grandma pretty much raised me. My mom had me at 15. I'm a product of teen pregnancy. So my mom had me when she was 15. My dad was 16 years old. They were babies themselves. So my grandma did most of the raising because my mama went back to school. She went to high school, so I stayed with my grandma. So that bond that you usually get with your mom after you're born, I got that with my grandma. She was like my first mother. My mother gave birth to me, but my grandma raised me up until my mom was old enough to take care of a baby. Anyway, so when my grandma went to the hospital that March, whenever I would leave work and go straight to the hospital to sit with her. Well, one day we were sitting there. They were running all these tests and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. And I didn't even know at that time that her hemoglobin A1C was up and they had diagnosed her with diabetes. But what happened was she was complaining that her stomach was itching. So again, 290 pounds, like 5'3". And I had her lay on the bed and I raised her stomach, and underneath the fold of her stomach she had a rash, and it was red. It was inflamed, and it was like open, and then it had a horrible smell. It was a yeast infection. So I called the doctor in. He comes in and he checks her, and all the attention shift from the reason she was there, which was the actual pain in her legs, to this rash under her stomach that came from the yeast infection that she acquired from having high blood sugars. Remember, yeast live on sugar. So her blood sugar was extremely high. She was a diabetic, a newly diagnosed diabetic. They had literally just diagnosed her in the hospital on that stay. And we didn't know what to do anyway. They start treating the wound under her stomach and doing all of that, and they discharged her home because she was pretty stable. All the attention went off of her legs, off of her lower extremities. So there were no ultrasounds done to her leg at the time, her legs, bilateral legs at the time. So we go home and they discharge her with a prescription for some insulin, some syringes, a glucometer so she could check her blood sugar, and some supplies for the glucometer. That was it. We get there, and my grandma, who's a Christian, a street evangelist, all of that, she was like, I'm not a diabetic. I'm not a diabetic. She refused to accept the fact my kids are coming in from school. Excuse the noise. She refused to accept the fact that she was diabetic. And she said, I'm not sticking myself. I'm not giving myself no insulin. And that was that. I was an LVN at the time. I was 27 years old, licensed vocational nurse. Didn't really have the knowledge that I have now. Didn't even have the knowledge that I was going to acquire in the future as a registered nurse. So I didn't know no better. My grandma said the Lord was going to heal her. The Lord is going to heal her, and that's that. So anyway, after being home, that was that March. April, I have a big family. We do big holidays. It was Easter. We celebrated Easter like we normally do with all the big fat food. The Barbecue, ribs, beef, links, all of that. We did the desserts, everything that we do, we continue to do. We didn't change anything, not even for her, because we were ignorant. We didn't know no better. That May, my cousin, who, like, back in the 80s, we know the crack epidemic hit a lot of families, and my cousins lived with my grandma. My grandma raised my cousins when my aunt couldn't raise them no more for whatever reason. But my cousin who was there with her say my grandma stepped on the step to go upstairs and she collapsed. She fell. And then she immediately started snoring. We didn't know what that was. When by the time she called my uncle first, and then she called 911. By the time the paramedics got there, she had a faint heartbeat. With that faint heartbeat, they were able to transport her to the emergency room. By the time she got to the emergency room, she was gone. She was dead. She had had a pulmonary embolism, and in her lungs, there were so many clots that they stopped counting. Those clots started to form that that march in her lower extremities, but because all the attention was taken off of her legs, the primary reason we took her to the hospital and it was put on that rash that I found under her stomach, they never got to do the ultrasound, so nobody knew that she had clots in her legs. So the clots end up traveling to her lungs and wherever, and she died of a pulmonary embolism. I'm saying this to say, when Jason told me that I needed to add, my trainer the day before yesterday said that we need to add 2 miles of walking to our already 3-day-a-week HIIT workout. I don't really like to work out. I've never really liked to work out. I never liked exercise. I failed PE every year in high school because I wouldn't work out. I didn't want to get my feather messed up, and I didn't want to mess up my makeup. At that time, right now, I love the reds, but at that time it was fuchsia. I love fuchsia, and I had a pretty feather, and I wasn't going to mess that up. So I failed PE every year. I ended up making it up. But anyway, when he said we needed to add the 2 miles, I was like, oh, dang, I don't want to work out. I don't want to add 2 more miles to what I'm already doing. Like, I'm working out. But then I thought about my grandma, and I thought about the reason that I'm doing this, and I thought about the reason that I lost 100 pounds, and I thought about the reason that I made obesity management my subspecialty, and why diabetes management is my specialty. It's because my goal is to get out here and tell people that we got to take care of our bodies, because the system is not going to do it. It's just too overloaded. We have to take the responsibility in taking care of ourselves. They'll treat us with medication. They'll give us, check our labs, but they're not going to heal us. Only we can do that for ourselves. So the holidays are up on us, and November, this month is Thanksgiving, next month is Christmas, the next month is New Year's, and every single holiday brings about a lot of food and jovial activities, and I love this time of year. So irregardless of how I feel, I'm putting myself on a challenge, and I'm going to walk 2 miles a day for at least 5 days a week, and then work out, do my 3-day HIIT workout. And I ask that if you are in the same situation as me and you have obesity as a disease, and you have diabetes, or you have diabetes in your family, I'm asking you to get out there this holiday season and get in 150 minutes of walking or of some type of exercise in a week. 150 minutes, studies have shown, will help prevent disease or control disease. And I'm asking you if you could get on this bandwagon with me. I thank you so much. I am Shamika, or She, the MP. Have a beautiful day. Peace.